Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. My name is Khoirun Fauziyah. I am from class A, and in this opportunity, I'm going to present about language variation. Yes, for the first is about definition of language, idiolect, and dialect. Language is a sound and gesture of human to communicate or express complex thought and ideas. And for idiolects is any variety of a language spoken by a person, which differs systematically from the other native speaker. And the third is dialect. Dialect is any variety of a language spoken by a group of people that is characterized by systematic differences from other varieties of the same language in terms of structural or lexical features. And like my explanation in this picture that you can see, it is about the different accent. For example, is American and British accents. Yes, the differences accent, it is to avoid lay people for misusing a dialect because it is about the characteristic, that characterized for the someone to use dialect. Yes, a group of people speaking in the same dialect is called a speech community. For more, that a particular dialect of a speech community is influenced by regional, social, and cultural factors. Yes, for the next materials is style and register. The form style refers to a language variety that is divided based on speech or speaking situation into formal and informal style. Some speech style are described in terms of degrees of formality. This speech style may be described as formal or informal, casual or careful. We may try to relate the level of formality chosen to a number of factors. Yes, first is kind of occasion. The second is various social, age, and other differences that exist between the participant. That it is about the children, to the adult people, and others. So we use the different language, that the different style to speaking with them. And the third is the particular task that is involved, writing or speaking. Fourth is emotional involvement of one or more of the participant. It is by Wardlaw. Next is about register. Registers is one complicating factor in any study of language varieties. Registers are usually characterized socially by vocabulary differences, neither by the use of particular words or by the use of words in particular sense. For example, it is appropriate to use formal register of speech when speaking to the President of the United States, while we may be aware of making a special effort to modify our language and our manners for certain people or in certain situations, the changes that we make are usually performed effortlessly. However, you usually do not need to play your speech style in advance. Automatically adjusting from one speech style to another is known as style shifting. Okay, next is about the jargon and slang. A jargon, also called technical language, is a language variety that differs only in lexical items. Professional jargon are often used to impress people outside the profession. Occasionally, a word or an expression of jargon escapes from its original context into general use. Yes, from this you can see the example of jargon. The first is rhinitis word. Rhinitis sounds a great deal more impressive than a runny nose. And the second is rhinoplasty word. Rhinoplasty sounds a lot of more serious and professional than nose job. Yes, it is about the jargon. And how about the slang? Yes, like a jargon, slang has to do more with stylistic choices in vocabulary than with systematic lexical differences between varieties. But slang are often less formal than other equivalent words. Or we can say that slang is a part of idiom that is very informal form and it is commonly used in contemporary contexts. Yes, there are two basic types of slang. First is common slang. Common slang is the language that most people consider just a little too informal for letters of application. For example, is fridge. It means for refrigerator and TV for television. The second type is in-group slang. In-group slang is the more specialized slang of particular group at particular time. For example, is junky, dishy, willy-nilly balls up. And the junky is to something that old, vintage, or low quality, and dishy for good looking, and willy-nilly for there is no other choice or there is no option, and balls up for messy or mess up. Yes, next is standard dialects and notion of prestige. Linguistically speaking, no one dialect or language is better, more correct, more systematic, or more logical than any other. The notion of standard dialect is very often a complex one and in many ways an idealization. Every language has at least one standard dialect, which serves as the primary means of communication across dialects. Other dialects can be called non-standard dialects but should not be considered inferior. Yes, for the prestige definition, the definition of prestige is different varieties of what people consider to be standard. The variety of standard prestige based on the prestige of the speaker who use it. For example, the multiple negative construction. And you can see my sentence. Yes, this negative construction is usually used by are not members of the higher socioeconomic group, and then English grammar instructor discourage use of this form in writing or in speech. So it appears perspective standard through social opinion by the social evaluation of speaking. Yes, for the standard dialect in United States is called Standard American English or SAE. SAE exactly constitutes in this variety is lacking. Ideally, SAE is not pronounced with any of the phonological variation characteristic of the regional varieties. And Standard American English is defined more clearly in terms of grammar than in terms of pronunciation. In Britain, the standard dialect is both pronunciation and grammar are marks of social status. Yes, all dialects that are not perceived as varieties of the standard are called non-standard. The non-standard variety is more systematic than the standard variety because it consistently uses the same form. The possessive as the stem for forming the reflexive paradigm. But the misconception of non-standard should be explained clearly so that many people do not make some negative adjustment and become bidialectal speakers. Yes, that's all my explanation about the language variation. Thanks for your attention. Telah saya wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.